We don't have to change anything. Everything should be fine to go again. I'm going to overwrite the old file just to clean up those little bits of purple, bluey purple color we had left in here. Alright, so we have our material ID map rendered out now. Our object is one object. I'm just going to make a copy of this object by holding down the shift key and dragging out a copy. And because if I was to export this as it is now into Substance Painter, I'm going to have two textures here in my texture set. I only want one. That was the whole point of us rendering out a material ID map. The easiest way to do that is just to make a copy of the multi-material object and just assign any one material to it before we export it. So I'll export selected. We'll make sure we go into our correct folder. Spare that one there. We'll just call it Square Rail Ironwork. We'll save it as an FBX. Okay. That should be fine. We'll find out in a minute. Let's import it. Let's create a new project here in Substance Painter. We're going to add the material ID map we just rendered out from render to texture. Alright. Let's make sure we select our ID map here, which is the render to texture we rendered out from Max. We're still left with one material in our texture set list here. We don't have multiple materials. Let's start with the frame, I think, the outside frame here. And I think for that one we were using old iron. I think that was the one we were using. We'll find out in a minute. I'm just going to remove this default blank layer that Substance creates when you create a new project. I don't think that was the texture we were using. Let's see what else we've got here. It may have been oxidized iron. Yeah, it was oxidized iron that we were using. Alright, let's drag up that gold paint color now. This metallic paint. You see, with Substance, if you're not careful, when you're doing your drag, it's going to replace the current material in the layer. We don't want that, so long as we're quick and careful, we should be fine. Let's drag that gold up to the top. We're going to add mask with color selection. Pick the color and pick that orange. There we go. So now we have our gold on our interior and our oxidized iron on the outside. Just going to look at my oxidized iron here and play with my scaling a little bit. Looks a bit more natural, making the scaling, tiling a little bit larger. And on my, I think the metallic paint though will be okay. I'm just going to throw a generator down to see whether we can, I just want to try and break up that yellow of the gold paint a bit more, make it look a little bit more random. And let's also try playing with our blending mode a bit.
You're my star tonight. Oh, yeah, your light gets me through the night. Oh, yeah, we fly and we soar the heights. Oh, yeah, the sky will be ours tonight when we collide. I believe in you and
I think adding this third layer, even though it's really subtle, it's just knocking back some of that gold a little bit more. That should do. Let's save our project here. Make sure we're in the right folder. So now we're using the multi-material ID. We have control over where we're placing the two materials, but we're still only keeping one texture map. So let's export our texture map. Make sure we're in the right folder here for our export.
You're my star tonight. Oh, yeah, your light gets me through the night. Oh,
okay, and export that texture. Okay, jump back into Max. Let's export our railing section now, and we're going to call it square rail comp for complete. Export selected. We'll just save it into our exports folder at the base level, I think. We could create a new folder for it, but we probably don't need to. We're not saving out any textures, we're only saving out an FBX file. Let's jump into Unreal. Actually, before we jump into Unreal, let's also export. Actually, we probably don't have to export that. We can use the one we exported for Substance Painter. Let's jump into Unreal. We're in our models directory. Let's import that square railing. And again, because I'm not exporting it at 00 world space, I have to make sure transform vertex to absolute is unselected. Okay, now we're going to have to assign our textures here. So let's see what it's done. It's brought everything into our one folder. We're going to have to move them into our specific folders so we can keep everything nice and organized. But let's look at the textures first. Let's open up our model here. Zoom in so we can see it a little bit better. You can see our edge wearing on the banister railings here and down the bottom. We can see the definition we put into the railing sections to make them look a bit more three-dimensional. And we have our decorative corner pieces here. I do still want to check the I don't like where it's placed my model. Now you see where it's put my model way out here. That's probably because we didn't do a reset X-form before we did the export. Let's jump back into Max quickly. We've got our object selected. We'll jump into our utilities panel and where am I? We'll just add a reset X-form to that. It's generally a good idea when you're working with multiple pieces of geometry that you attach together to throw down a reset on the X-form. Again, let's make sure that that looks okay. I was going to make sure that our axis is in the middle. Let's re-export it again now. Square railing complete. We'll just overwrite the last file. You see too, by doing a reset on the X-form, we didn't get that error message pop up in the FBX export. Let's jump back into Unreal. Let's re-import that model again. And now you see when we open up our object, it's actually placed it correctly on our little square here, not off to the side like it was. And just doing a reset on the X-form is what fixed that up for us. So we have our wooden piece there for our separating our top and bottom floors. Let's bring in, before we bring that in, I just want to check what it's done to our materials. I want to make sure it's doing the right thing here, because it has a habit when you import automatically into Unreal, it really only brings in your color map, and we want to bring in a color as well as an occlusion, a normal as well as an occlusion. So I don't know that I've created a normal or occlusion for this texture though. So just before we look at that one, yes, fine. Let's look at this one. This is one that we saved out from Substance Painter. Again, all it's done is bring in the color map, and I know that we have an occlusion, a roughness, and a normal map. So I'm going to copy that texture and paste 2 more copies in. One's going to be for the normal map and one will be for the occlusion, roughness, and metallic maps. Let's load in our textures now. So I'm going to load them into the wrong folder on purpose because I want to make sure that I get the folders, the textures correct that match the color maps. So we're looking for square banister bottom plane. This one here and this one here. These two and these two. Okay. Now we're going to make sure that we get this one, wooden corner box gold. We want these two here. Actually, let's select a second texture sample here and make that our normal map. And let's select the third one and make this one our occlusion, roughness and metallic maps. So we're going to pipe our normal map into our normal slot. Now, a substance painter, when you use the default Unreal 4 template, puts your occlusion map, roughness map and metallic map in one texture map. You can, if you use a different template, you can get it to save it out as 3 separate files. Again, to save memory usage, it does it this way because it cuts down on, instead of having 3 separate textures, you've effectively only got one texture that you're taking the different color channels out to use. I'm just going to save that because I can never remember working this way, which one is which. So I have one already done. When I say already done, I've got another material that I've already hooked up. So I'm just going to jump into that material to remind myself how it hooks stuff up, what goes to what, in other words. Okay, here we go. So the red is for ambient occlusion, the green is for roughness, and metallic is blue. So ambient occlusion red, green is roughness, okay. So the red channel goes to our ambient occlusion. The green channel goes to our roughness, which will mean the blue channel goes to our metallic. Okay, let's save that texture sample. Thank you for the host, Kiori. I hope you're well. Alright, we've done that one. Let's work on another one now. What's this one? Okay, that's that one. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to copy it and paste 2 copies down. This is a very simple material. The glass material that I've created is a bit more complex than that, than what you're seeing here. This is just for these static assets. We'll use a proper glass material though when we come to do the windows and things for the building. So let's pipe in our normal map here. And let's pipe in our occlusion here. Normal. Red goes to ambient occlusion, green goes to roughness, and blue goes to metallic. Save our texture. This one I think, oh no, okay. It's recreated, that's that decorative work that's on those side columns on each corner. But I already have a material for that already created that I created when I made the wooden banisters. When I made the wooden panel, sorry, this one here, which already has our material all set up correctly. So we're just going to use this material. And it's called wooden panel deco. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our object, I'm going to find that material here. It's this one here. I'm going to swap that out for the one that I've already created. So this one. Okay. Alright, just before we finish off on the rest of the textures, because there's still a couple more for that model, like we need to do the borders down the bottom, and so it's probably just the borders down the bottom, I think. Oh, and the railings as well. Yes, it is coffee time. So I was going to say, just before we do that, I'm going to grab a fresh cup of coffee. I will be back in just a few minutes, guys, and we'll finish off setting up our model, finish off the railing section for our model. I'll be back in just a few minutes, guys. I'll leave you with my B-Road back screen. I noticed my music was stuttering yesterday. I'm sorry about that if it stutters on my B-Road back screen. I'm trying to work out what's causing that. Could be because I have so many programs open in the background. But I will be back in just a few minutes, guys. Okay. So, let's look at the two textures left that don't have a normal map or an occlusion map assigned to it yet, which will be this the wooden decoration that's around the bottom of the railings and the actual rails themselves. Stairway bars and wood Deco P. Alright, let's jump into gnarled, because remember these are bitmaps. We didn't actually texture those pieces up in substance, so it didn't create our normal map automatically for us. So we're going to have to go back into our original Deco model thing here, folder, find those textures we're using for our decorations, and they are and I've already forgotten what they're called. What are they called? No, not that one. Wood Deco P. What is this? Wood Deco P color is the one I'm looking for. What I'm going to do actually is, before I load up that texture, these are all targets. I want to make sure we're using PNGs, so I'm going to quickly load up Photoshop. Saving them as a PNG will allow me to see the texture in my Windows Explorer as opposed to Targa where I can't see what I'm doing. No, I don't mind Sniperico. I will check that out in just 2 seconds. Just let me save out these PNG, two textures as PNG, and then I'll check it out for you. Hang on. So let's open up those textures that we're working on. UE4 projects, models, Deco building, Deco export. And we are looking for this one here. And the other one we need is this one here, which is a stairway bars text. I'm trying to breathe, I'm sinking underwater. I try to escape. I think I'm drowning, this feeling gets stronger and I'm not quite ready. That one right there. Again, you see these are very small textures. Let's just save this one out as a PNG file. We save it into the same folder that we've been working in for our main textures. We can even leave the name the same. We'll do the same for this one. Okay, let's close Photoshop down now. Back into Gnarled. Let's load up our color map. Start with the railings. Now I can't load up the mesh because I didn't save the railings out separately, so we're going to have to work with that cylinder here. That should be fine. Let's just play with our normal map a little bit. Because now remember, we added geometry here. We don't have to try and fake it with a normal map. We actually have these railing sections modeled in as polygons, so we don't really have to pull up on our normal map to fake it. Let's update our integrator and make sure we set our path. Wrong one. Model, that's the one I want. Deco model, that folder should be fine. Let's just check on our ambient occlusion map here. I want to pull it up a bit. Okay, let's export. Let's do the last one, which is the that decorative border that runs along the bottom. This one here. And the same sort of thing. We don't we can leave the path, export path the same, that's fine. So update the integrator. I might just pull back on the intensity a little bit on my normal map, update my integrator again. Back to my ambient occlusion. And let's export those. Okay, we can close down Gnarled now. So let me have a look at this link. Oh no, I can look at it now if you like, I don't mind. Let's have a look at it now. Like I said guys, I'm not here to work on my own stuff, I'm here to help you guys as much as I can, and I'm interested in seeing what you're working on, so I have no problem with stopping what I'm doing and looking at anything that you guys want to show. Okay. Alright. That's looking much better. I can see it all now, which is great. That's much better, Sniper Echo, much better. So we went from Sniper Echo's original here to this version, which was a bit too dark. And I see you've lightened it up now, taking the green out of the sky, which is great. Looking much, much better. I'll close this one down because that's the older, darker version. I just want to jump between this one and the new one now. Yeah, no, I like that a lot better. I like the fact that we've got less green happening in the image overall and more of the orange. The orange really helps to pick up the ground and helps to better blend with that light color you've got coming through here. In the end, the green from the sky, that's gone, that's good. The rock textures are looking very nice. The dirt textures are looking nice as well. Did you add a bit more of a variation through your dirt here? It looks much better. No problem, yeah. Calibrate your screens and it will be a huge improvement. Trust me, you'll make your life much easier. But I do like what you've done here. The image is looking very nice, really nice. I like the fact that you're picking up more orange and less green. Yeah, no, it's looking good, really good. And again, if I was to say anything, I would just say maybe introduce a little bit more blue Again, I find it hard without knowing exactly how you're doing, whether this is done in post-process or what. But if I was to do color correction on this image, and it's looking great by the way, I would just introduce a little bit more blue over the image in general. Just a hint though, just a little bit. Like I said, you can see the difference between this one where you've got a lot of green and yellow, and this one where you brought in a lot more of the orange, and I really like the orange. I don't want you to knock that out. I can see the sky again, and the sky's looking great. I like the fact that the orange brings up the dirt and the rock and better blends with that light shaft. Just a touch of blue. It's done in post-process. Okay, cool. Just add a touch of blue. Just a touch. Just a very, very little bit of blue. And with the blue will help to contrast with the orange colour. So blue and orange contrast really well next to each other. Well, let's look at Mass Effect. Andromeda is a good example of that because they use it all the time. If you look at that game, most of the times, whether it's an indoor environment inside one of the ships or it's an outside environment, they contrast orange and blue quite a lot. And that's because those two colours work really well next to each other. So my advice would be just to bring in a hint of blue, just a hint of blue. A very small amount, and that'll just help to lift up this orange center section a bit more as well. But it's looking great, looking really nice. Sniper Echo, really nice. Gonna make a great game. The environment looks great, the sky looks great. I like the colour in the dirt and the rock. I like the texture you're using. I like you've got a bit more variation happening in your dirt here, so it looks like dirt. It's great. It's really, really nice. Nice work. And like I said, I can't wait to see the actual game because it's looking amazing. It looks great. Alright, let's... what are we doing here? That's right, we're going to jump back into Unreal. We're going to import those normal maps and occlusion maps we just exported. I'm actually going to bring in the texture map as well because I want to swap out, pardon me, the target for the text for the PNG. We're not going to be using the height map, but we do want the normal map and the occlusion map for those railings, and I also want it for that decorative piece that sits along the bottom. That one and that one. Do you want to overwrite the existing asset? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes to all. Yes. Oh, damn it. Hit the wrong button. Cool. Yeah, just add a touch more blue Sniper, but it's looking really good. Really nice. Nice work. I'm just going to import those again because I hit no when I should have hit yes on one of them. And it was one of these ones here, I think. So I'll just re-import these last three. Yes to all. Yes to all. Yes to all. Yes to all. Okay. Let's open up these bars to begin with. The railings, I should say, on those step section. The railings on that square railing section. I'm going to copy and paste again 2 more texture samples in. Let's load up our normal map here. Let's load up our occlusion map here. Doing it this way too gives you guys a good way to see the difference between using Gnarled and using Substance Painter regarding your textures. Because Gnarled doesn't save them out quite the same way that Substance Painter does. So we have our normal and our ambient occlusion. Let's just save that. Alright, now we want this one. And the same thing, we're just going to copy and paste 2 copies of that texture sample in. I find doing a Control-C and a Control-V quicker than right-clicking and going through this way to add a texture sample. Let's load up our normal map. And let's load up our occlusion map. Type in our normal. And our occlusion. Save that texture set. Alright, I'm just going to jump back into our model here. Okay, we got a bit of shine happening. I didn't want the wood to be too shiny, like it was polished too much. I wanted it to look quite weathered and worn. But so I just added just a little bit of a reflective varnish look, not a highly reflective varnish look. Because if we look at our wood here, it's quite worn and weathered anyway. It's an old piece of wood. It's been sitting in that building since the 1900s or 1930s when the building was built. It's Art Deco. So a lot of the polish would have worn off. So that'll work for what we want. And like I said, we've added a little bit more detail in the, we've actually added detail into these railing sections as opposed to trying to fake it with a normal map. Because we're going to get much nicer lighting being thrown across our model this way by actually adding geometry as opposed to trying to fake it with a normal map. Normal maps are really useful in some places but less useful in others. You're always going to get a better result and a better look by actually using geometry. The same thing goes for our where are we? Getting used to the mouse difference between using Max and Unreal. The same goes with these wooden pieces we placed here, our wooden frame here. Because we're using actual geometry, I can't actually zoom in any closer than that. The engine won't let me. It'll catch the light much more nicely, particularly because we're going to, in the cinematic, we're going to be flying up through this middle of this railing section, so we're going to see this. All right, let's complete our railing section here. So we're going to import the wrought ironwork that goes into that railing. Export ironwork. This FBX is the one we want. Okay. Now, because I just imported the FBX that we exported from Max, again, we've got this problem where it's all sent up from where it should be sitting on that grey square. Again, that's because we haven't done our reset. Let's do that. Let's jump back into Max. Back to the ironwork section here, and we're just going to do another reset export. We'll collapse the stack. And we'll re-export that model. It's not a problem when you're working with Substance Painter, but it's going to be a problem when you try and bring it into Unreal. Back to Unreal, we will re-import the model again. I'll just open that up. Now you see it's sitting in the right position here in our viewer, but we're using just that plain material and that's not what we want. So let's open up that material. Because we didn't use a texture, it's just assigned a normal mathematical parameter for the color here. So we're going to have to add a texture. I'm going to copy that 2 more times. Grab the wrong one. Alright. Select our texture sample here, and we're going to have to import the textures we saved out from Substance Painter for that ironwork, so let's import them now. And it's these 3 here. Okay, let's load up our color map. And our normal map. And our occlusion, roughness and metallic. Type in our color. We can delete this one now, we don't need it.